Hey, horror fans, thanks for joining me and Dexter the intern, who's sleeping back there, for my best 2021 horror movies list. A top 10, we'll say. Uh, let's get a little housekeeping out of the way to start. If you're joining me exclusively just through the channel, through YouTube, um, you'll obviously going to hear the list here in a minute. But if you don't want to hear me ramble on like I tend to do, and if you've caught any of my other reviews, you can swing over to the blog right this moment, and scroll through the list yourself, and you'll find that link down below, with a little bit of explanation of the movies and so forth. What I put on the blog as far as the list is concerned. For those of you who have gone through the list already on the blog, thank you, and who have decided to swing over to this video, thanks for joining me here as well. I'm going to kind of expand or say some of the similar things I did in the blog about the top 10 list, but I'm also including here on this video some of the movies that didn't make my list, some of the ones that I left out that just kind of missed the cut, and maybe talk about why some of them missed the cut. Obviously, it's the top 10. I thought about expanding it to the top 20, but then, it's hard to kind of place the remaining. I think there was another 10 or so movies, even put those in order. And, it's all such a complicated thing when you see so many movies. And I narrowed it down and only seen maybe 20, 30 movies during the year. I could have maybe just listed them all. Those people that do, a top 50. I saw one top 50 list yesterday, and I was just like, wow. I wouldn't even know where to begin. There's a lot of movies on there, but, to make a difference between number 30 and 40, I don't know really what makes that difference. Anyway, again, for those who've been over to the blog, I'm also going to, talk about a little bit about horror in general, where we are, about some of the themes we saw this year, and not really get too much into what's coming next. I think we know, but also, give you a few series and shows and stuff like that happened in 2021 as well, that if you haven't caught, maybe you should check out. I'm not really going to rank them again. I wish I would have time to break everything down and so forth, but it was difficult enough, doing just a top 10 of the movies. Last year I kind of gave some special awards, or not awards, but kind of broke down after the top 10, some categories of other movies and kind of break them out in that way, but I just, it just all gets too mind-boggling to get through. So, with that, instead, I decided to come on here and instead of racking my brain in that way, just rack my brain here in front of you guys and give myself a chance to ramble one more time here in 2021. So with that, I guess I'm prepared to get into this list here. Obviously 2021, we had expectations of hopefully it was going to be a better year, but everybody's had their own year. Maybe yours was a really good year, whatever, but 2021 was not much more exciting than 2020. Another dumpster fire, as I said last year, and that's what it is. But the good thing is that horror has remained well and good, and there's been a lot of good horror out there, and hopefully you guys have got a chance to see that. I know last year was tough. A lot of movies got pushed back. Those movies got released this year, but still, it was made difficult to see. Some were in theaters, some weren't. So, some people saw some things who were willing to go to the theaters, others had to wait. So, kind of depending on your stance and where you are with the virus, as wanting to go out, or not go out, or wear a mask, not wear a mask, and where you're going to venture to, or whatever. What's the virus like in your neighborhood or your city? Some people went out and some people don't. So some people got to see some movies and some people missed some movies. And some movies are on platforms that people subscribe to and some don't. I know some, like take a Paramount Plus. I don't know that too many people subscribed to that in order to see, say, Paranormal Activity, the next of kin. But it is what it is. So that is one of the good things, though. One of the things I mentioned in my blog post is that it is good now that we do have all these options. You can go to the theater. If you don't want to go to the theater, you can maybe check it out on Netflix, Amazon, HBO, and whatever. We have so many of these things, and of course, we are super blessed to have Shudder, which is just tremendously awesome. And I know a lot of the movies that I picked for my top 10 last year ended up on Shudder. The Dark and the Wicked was my number one from last year. And I got to see that at a festival in August. And, that was my number one movie. And I made it my number one movie right when I saw that movie. I was blown away by it. And, so that's on Shudder. So many other great ones are on Shudder. And my number one movie this year is on Shudder, landed on Shudder. And that movie will credit because I saw that movie in January. And I don't remember what month it released on Shudder, but I saw that a little bit early. And credit to that, it held the number one spot all the way through. So if you follow me on Twitter and so forth, you probably already know what that movie is. I've kind of put it out there, but I also hinted it in when I mentioned that I was going to do a top 10 list here. So that might not be a surprise for you. I will say that the number 2 movie was very close, and I'll get into kind of my thoughts where number 2 and number 1 ended up and so forth in a few minutes. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump on this list, and then we can talk a little bit more about horror and what's going on in horror and what we can look forward to and how we view the movies and all this other nonsense going on here. So I'm going to start backwards and start with number 10. Drum a little suspense, but like I said, again, if you're not into hearing me ramble here or whatever, you can do it at the same time. Swing over to the blog and check out the top 10, and then you really have no suspense. I'll take it right from you. But number 10 is and I'll say this, just one last thing, and one of the things that's always difficult with these lists is when you get to see festival films, some of them end up with a large release, some of them don't. Some of them end up with a large release maybe much later down the line. So, kind of dating them and finding out that, whether they're 2020, 2021, or whatever year it is, might run a little bit different, and that's one of the things that are different in some people's lists. Sometimes you'll see a movie that is on my list and you won't see it on anybody else's list, maybe because nobody else got to see it unless you got to see festival films, or maybe somebody got to see it earlier than I did. Number 10 is one of these movies, and it's Frankenzed, one that's been only in festival films as far as I know. Was hoping for a release in some form at some point. So you may not get to see this on many people's lists, and you might have got to see this on some people's list last year. It was at some other festivals, but I didn't get to see it until it landed in a festival going this year. So if I've confused you there, I'm sorry. But anyway, Frankenzed is a movie that's done all with puppets. Took over 6 years to make, and the 10th spot is always a hard spot. Last year I think I narrowed it down to about 3 movies for that spot, and the last movie I gave it to, I actually ended up was one of the last movies I watched before basically saying, okay, that's it, I'm doing my list. And if I hadn't seen that movie, I would have probably given it to someone else, and maybe that movie would have ended up on the list this year. But it just squeezed in here. But I had to give this some props, basically because yeah, you take 6 years to do a movie, that's a big deal. On top of it, to do it all with puppets is a big deal. I've never worked with puppets, but I imagine that's not the easiest thing to do, especially with what they do in the movie with the puppets. Fortunately, on the podcast, we got to speak to the director and the creator of Frankenzed, and kind of learned a little bit about what they did with the puppets and so forth. That kind of added to respecting what they did there and the work they put in. So I just when I kind of narrowed it down to the last couple of movies there, that's kind of one of the reasons why I kind of gave it the nod. Yes, I like the movie, but I respect everything they did in bringing it to horror fans, and I really hope it does get a bigger release eventually, so more people can see it. I know they want to expand that universe, and obviously step one in doing that is being able to blow this movie up and make it bigger so more people can watch it. But yeah, it's centered around Frankenzed, or two major puppets there. I don't want to get into too much of the details of each of these movies. If I should also note that if I did review them on the blog in this top 10 list, you'll be able to hit the name of the movie, and I'll take you to the review. So if you want to see my thoughts on it, whether I did a video review or a written review, if I did a review, the link should be there. So therefore, I'm not going to go into completely every detail of all these movies. I will say, one of the things I liked about it is, if you thought a puppet movie couldn't get kind of gory and brutal and whatever, and you guys know that I like that, and I think that's a theme you'll find here in a lot of these movies that I've picked here, have some are either majorly bloody or have some really good blood and gut moments in here. And for a puppet film, this one does it. I mean, there's puppets pulling intestines out, there's puppets getting their head chopped off and stabbed, and all kinds of stuff you're not going to see on Sesame Street, or with the puppets, or the Muppets, I should say. And all just kinds of crazy goodness here. There's a big battle that happens at the end of this movie where the townspeople are trying to get rid of Frankenzed, and it's just wild. It's just wild, a wild scene for puppets. So that is a big reason why this movie has landed on my list here. Number 9 is probably the most shocking choice, at least I think, I would say. If you would ask me, what movie is a shocker here, and I hopefully, maybe some of you guys as well would say it. It is number 9 here, and it is The Toll. I realized that maybe not a lot of people saw this movie. I got this one via screener. I understand it did go to some festivals, but I'm not sure what kind of release it had. Some of these I know, some of these I don't know. I don't know if this one had I think it eventually landed on DVD and so forth, but it didn't get a really huge release, and it wasn't a majorly talked about movie. But this one is just one of those ones that, as I was sharing my reviews all year long, and kept kind of, I would share, what I'm sharing, in the present, but every once in a while I kind of go back to another month in the year and share some movies. And every time I kind of saw this one, I just kind of remembered it, and just remember liking so many things about it. I also know that some people did see it, complained about certain things of it, but I thought it was, it was a dark atmosphere. It's created some really creepy moments. I don't think it necessarily is gonna scare you to death, but it certainly painted a lot of creepy moments in there for you. It left me wanting to know more about the Toll Man. Not the Tall Man, but the Toll Man. I was kind of confused why the movie wasn't just called The Toll Man, but it's just The Toll. But I wanted to know more about him and about that um, myth of him and what is all about him. It is explained to a certain point in the movie, but I don't know. It kind of left me wanting to see more, and I think I mentioned in my review of it. It would have been nice to see a prequel of that. Or I mean, they could have done a similar movie to it. I guess as a sequel, but since this one didn't kind of blow up, I'm not gonna hold my breath on it. But I also liked that it's kind of a rideshare movie. At least that's how it starts, and there's a man and a woman. The man's driving, the woman's the passenger, and as things kind of go wrong, they're each kind of blaming the other and saying the other has put them in this situation. There's a complete lack of trust between them from the beginning, and it kind of goes back and forth, and as an audience member, you're kind of guessing, is one of them behind it? Is one of them kind of pushing the buttons here? Or is they not? So it's playing with the audience there. It's kind of, giving you that back and forth as well, which I enjoyed. I think it kept you on your toes. I think, I don't think it's going to superly shock anybody with what eventually happens, but I still liked it, that game that was going on there. So yeah, just a lot of things like there, and I couldn't not stick this in here. I liked it. I think everybody, at least with their list, to remember these are your list and the movies that you like. But I think you kind of have to give some people sometimes at least one giveaway movie here, and one that maybe you like that no one else is gonna like, or you might not see in any other top list there. I did see this one in not a top list, but as a secondary list. I don't remember what it was called, but I did see a mention there. So I feel at least a little better that it ended up somewhere, and someone else remembered it besides just me. But that means I'm going to number 8 here, and this is the only big, I'm gonna say big franchise movie that made it on my list. And we had a lot of movies that were supposed to be in 2020 that pushed back to this year. Halloween Kills, Candyman, Spiral, and several others, whether they were remakes or sequels of big franchises. This is the only one of what I'm going to call a big franchise. There's another franchise movie here, but I don't think it's on the level of any of the others, and that's why I kind of excluded it, and when I get there, I'll let you know. But this is the only one that I really consider a big franchise movie. And this one, is a newer one, and also, kind of making its way to being a real franchise. So it's still, I guess, one of the younger ones. So with that, you're not going to see Halloween Kills on this list. You're not going to see Candyman on this list. And you're not going to find Spiral on this list. I reviewed all those movies, so if you're interested, you can go back and really see what I had to say about that. And maybe when I get to the end, I'll have a comment or two further on those and why they didn't make it. But with that, number 8 is A Quiet Place, Part 2. I'm a huge fan of the first one. Loved everything about that movie. Was just blown away. Something about having a movie and having characters have to be so quiet and so particular, and you can't make a noise, and just that whole environment that's created there, even before you get to the creatures or the aliens or whatever you want to call them. Just that whole environment that is created, and the tension that creates, and then just the suspense and so forth. It's just something we don't see a lot in other movies. Other movies are so much louder and so much background noise, and you got the action going and whatever. And this one is just almost in reverse. And I just love the way they play it off, and the kids are great, and having the kids, not being able to speak, not being able to hear, it just adds, it's just adding different elements that we don't get to see a lot. And this one I liked with the girl, when that they did a couple of times where she couldn't hear, so you couldn't hear either. The world kind of went blank, so you were kind of thrown into her shoes. I thought that was that's an interesting thing. Again, something we don't get to see a lot of. really, really getting put in the character's shoes there, and knowing what's around, and knowing that these creatures are there, it's really cool. So, I really enjoyed this one. I'm not gonna say that I enjoyed it as much as the first one, but not that much less. The first one's a little bit more emotional, and I'm not going to give any spoilers in case you never saw the first one, but I definitely recommend you do. But yeah, it is a good franchise in the building and in the works. They're going to do another one, and there's some other things going on with this franchise. So this is not the end of it. We're going to see more. We're going to see a part 3 and probably some more stuff coming from this universe. So I'm excited. I want to see it, and I hope horror fans will go on a further ride with it. So yeah, I'm not going to go into too much more detail about that. I'll just hopefully you guys got to see it. I know that was another one that got pushed back. Not everybody got to see it, but hopefully you did. Number 7. Liked this one. Didn't was kind of wondering if this was gonna end up eventually on my top 10. Wasn't really sure, but it did, and it's Werewolves Within. And one of the other things that I kind of mentioned on the blog about some of the movies that are on my list is having some great performances, and Sam and Melina, I believe that's how you say her name, really put on some great performances here, especially Sam. I thought, their work together was really great. They're two fun characters. They played really well off each other, but, Sam was just hilarious in my mind, and I got to see him later again in Army of the Dead, and I thought he was hilarious in that movie, Sam Richardson, and he was definitely a plus for that movie, the comic relief, if you will, and he's certainly that way in this movie. I thought he made a great lead, and again playing very well opposite of Milana there. If I'm butchering the name, I do that all the time. I'm sorry. But I thought it was a fun story. They kind of set up a murder mystery here, so it was a fun take on that. I think what ultimately happens, I don't think is a huge surprise, but I think if you just kind of play dumb or just kind of go along with what's happening there, it's a real fun movie. It's a real fun horror comedy, and yes, I've gone soft in some ways. I'm kind of at two extremes, liking the blood and guts movies, and then now, liking more and more of these horror comedies. Can't get away from them. So, I guess I'm liking the two extremes. And, but yeah, it just a fun movie overall, I guess that's the way to say it. And, it's a werewolf movie, but not hugely typical of a werewolf movie. We don't get a big trend. We get a little bit of a transformation here, but not a big one. That's not really the point of the movie. We do get some blood and guts, but not an extreme amount. But they do, squeeze some in there. But fun either way. I think that's just one of those ones that again stick in your mind, and you're just like, that was just a fun watch there. And I think because of that's why you just can't get away from it. Number 6. Number 6, again, here is another movie that is part of a franchise, if you want to call it. But I'm not going to put it anywhere as big as Halloween or even A Quiet Place or some of the other ones I mentioned. It did have other parts. It's been gone for a long time now, and it was kind of surprising to see them even bring it back. But just did a fantastic job in bringing it back and making it well worth it. It was definitely a blockbuster hit, landing on Shudder, and that's VHS 94. We saw I believe it was just two VHS movies, if I'm not mistaken. I could be mistaken. Before centering, a center story, kind of putting together some short films and binding them together. Certainly some worthy short films in those two movies, but I think as movies as a whole, they were okay. I think one of them, if I'm thinking right, one of them had a zombie short that I really, really thought was freaking awesome. With the guy on the bike and he kind of films everything from his helmet and then eventually becomes a zombie. Was pretty cool, if I got the right movie. Sometimes I mix these things up. But I'm thinking that's VHS. I don't know. It's been a long time since I saw this. Anyway, 294. Just everything to like in all these shorts. Like I said, I like blood and guts. There's just blood and guts all over the place in this one. You have the ending one with that interesting take on vampires and something different there. Something that kind of also touches on maybe the political environment we are in now and that kind of craziness. And there's the one that kind of ends up almost like a video game where you're kind of with the camera going around and it's just seeing people just getting slaughtered left and right in a really long short film, I guess. But it's just a lot of fun because of that. It kind of starts a little strange, but just ends in bloody glory. Fun. And I guess the wraparound story was okay. I guess if there was anything that was maybe not a total surprise, was what was going on there. And then now we all hail Ratma because of the first short in that movie, and that was fun, interesting, especially when they go back to the news station. And you kind of see what happens there. I just think, they put them in the correct order. Not necessarily, worst to best, but just the way it was presented. I think, they got a little bit longer as they went and just, gave you good takes after that. And even the one in the morgue where, or the funeral home and, she's there alone and then things are just going wrong, and then the body's here, and well, I don't know. I guess I shouldn't spoil it, but just all kinds of things that that I'm gonna like. The blood and the guts and just the craziness, and I was looking at this one and I said, is there any way I could not put this in here in my top 10? And I couldn't, because it just screams to being a movie that I like, and I'm a fan of short films as well, so it's hard to not appreciate the short film angle there, and putting them all together. Number five kind of goes where a theme of last year, where I included one, if not two, Indonesian films. I don't remember which ones I did, because I know some of them I saw at different times, and I've already seen one of them end up on some of the lists for this year. And again, this goes back to what I was saying, that some people see movies at different times, and that was The Queen of Black Magic. So I guess some people saw it at the beginning of this year, and included them in that list, and that's fine, because that was a fabulous movie. So but I had already seen that last year, so I believe that was one of the ones that I did last year. But anyway, I had to kind of stick with the same formula there, because I've kind of found a greater appreciation for these movies. This one is out of Thailand and South Korea, so it's not exactly Indonesia, but close. And that is The Medium. And again, this is another one that I was kind of like, do I not, does this fit here? And, I just couldn't not have this here. It's not my typical film, it's kind of that found footage documentary style. And if you've seen some of the other reviews I did, I think especially with the Paranormal Activity movie from this year, when I did that review, I make a note that I don't mind found footage, but I have just a lot of problems with it. But this one kind of starts out that way because it is a documentary, and that's the way that it kind of starts. It starts extremely slow, very detailed, very, going into this woman's life and, the religion and what's going on here and setting up the characters and the family members and whatever. And, takes its sweet time doing it. And I remember when I was watching, I'm like, when am I really going to continue to watch this? I mean, this is, like being a serious documentary here. This is just going on and on. And I'm not sure where they're going with this. When is the horror really going to get here? And then they kind of drop you in a little bit here, a little bit there. And then kind of, like I said in my review, kind of it's like being an elevator and all of a sudden it kind of drops. So if you've been in the, I guess, lucky I've never had that exactly done, but I guess a close experience is being in the Tower of Terror. When you're on that ride and you're kind of just going along and all of a sudden it just drops on you. It's a wild and crazy ending, creepy as hell. You have documentary people dying left and right, finally getting what they deserve for sticking with it for so long. You have babies in danger. The one girl who's possessed, just goes completely berserk, and just leaves you with just a wild, creepy, scary ending. And I can just appreciate, I guess at the end, after it finally comes to an end, kind of appreciate them taking you on that ride and kind of, lulling you in and kind of letting you let your guard down and so forth. So hopefully, if you haven't seen this and you kind of turn it on, stick with it, let it, ride it out. I think you'll be pleased by the end and what they do here. Again, I believe this one was either subtitled or dubbed. I don't remember. Again, because it's not an English-made movie. But I think, and that's kind of another thing that sometimes kind of lulls me to sleep as well. And I think that, that just kind of worked in its favor here. But that was just such a wild and crazy ending and unexpected that I had to give it its due for that. And, some of these movies, 6, 7, 8, even this one, 5, give or take, I could have swung them in a different order here or there. As much as I enjoyed a Quiet Place, to me sometimes those big movies are such a given, that they're so a little bit too easy to just kind of put in your list, because they have everything going in their favor. They're hugely marketed. They can get whatever actors they need, and they have the big budgets. They can pull off things that maybe some of these other films can't. So. It's if I really enjoy one, I will stick it in here. Just the more and more I see some of these smaller budgeted films and foreign films and festival films, you can just enjoy the work and what they've done, and seeing new faces and learning new talent, and that's kind of what is going to lead to the way here into the top 4 here, except. Number 4, you're going to have some familiar faces. Familiar faces for horror fans, horror icons in this movie. And a movie that I'm glad I kind of gave a chance to, because at first I was like, what is going on here? I kind of heard some people really liking this movie, but I it really wasn't on my list of must-sees. But then everybody who had seen it, was saying good things about it, and that's Jacob's Wife. And obviously this one has Barbara Crampton in it, and Larry Fessenden, and Barbara just puts on a terrific showing here. I mean, she's just great in this movie. She kind of starts off as this, just being the wife and kind of going along with things. She's a little sick of them, but she's kind of going along. She doesn't, she wants to leave her husband, doesn't really want to, and so forth, but then kind of ends up as a vampire here, but then kind of embraces that and has just some really crazy scenes. She's not afraid to get bloody and kind of yucky there, and she's, she has some really, really good scenes and good moments. There's some really good stills from this movie of her and so forth, and a fun scene of her there in the meat section, and just a lot to like in that area. And again, it gets bloody, and then there's plenty of humor in this movie too. There's a scene where they're dragging a body along, and then there's the little girl, and then they kind of start cussing at her, and that's one of the scenes that kind of stick out. It's just being hilarious, but just so many good things happening in this movie, and of course Barbara and Larry play great off of each other. And just a little bit of a different take with a vampire. She is becoming a vampire, but was battling to want to stay with her husband, and that's interesting in fact because he's also a priest. So there's a lot of dynamics going there, and then you have the head vampire there that's kind of tempting her to kind of go to Team Evil or whatever, become what she truly is. So I thought it was it's just giving you something a little bit different there, giving you the performances, giving you some things to laugh at, and giving you enough blood there to just giving you all kinds of stuff to like, or at least giving me a lot of things to like. So it's not a surprise to see this one on many people's lists. It is well deserved. Whether it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. I definitely think this one should be on many people's list. Number three. Number 3 is another film that kind of landed in the third spot, largely due to the performance in this movie. I'm not going to say by far, but certainly my favorite performance of the year in a horror movie. And I know there were a lot of good ones, and then different styles. There's some movies where people do good performances because they're getting freaked out. I don't remember off the top of my head the woman's name, but everybody liked the performance of her in The Night House, and she does a good job. In that movie, again, I don't remember off the top of my head the actress's name, but everybody was raving about her, and like I said, she did do a good job. But a very different role there. There she's supposed to be scared and kind of creeped out of what's going on there. And this performance is a different one in this movie. But it was just simply, I saw this one again at a festival, saw it at its premiere. I was just blown away by the performance here. And again, it's a good movie, has some blood in it. It's not hugely bloody, but when it finally gets there, it gives you a good taste of it. Barbara, again, is in this movie. She has a short role, but her scene in it, and I don't want to spoil it if you haven't seen it, but her scene in it, I guess the second time you kind of see her, I'll say that. That scene is just brilliant in its own, with what happens there. But the movie is Superhost. And again, this one kind of plays on, I mentioned the other one had ride sharing. This one is kind of an Airbnb type movie. Also playing on YouTubers and vloggers, and looking at me and myself here. But you have 2 vloggers here who are I guess travel to different places and kind of do their own reviews and so forth of the place. And we're doing pretty good at it, but then all of a sudden kind of dropped off and starting to lose likes and popularity, and they end up in this place with what they call as a super host, and gets more than they're bargained for from Rebecca. And she's very awkward, a little bit unusual, very special, and they don't realize what they have in front of her, and until they do, when they do a great interview with her, that's just a bizarre scene, but fantastic in itself. Of course, Rebecca is played by Gracie Gillam, and I guess it is a little bit of a spoiler, but I guess if you're watching this movie, there's not much choices of what's really going to happen here. I don't think there's much of a surprise here. Eventually, Rebecca's going to flip and just go, buck crazy on them. And when, she gives a good performance, early on, and with some of the things she does, and just her awkwardness, and how cheery she is, but then how awkward she is. But then when she flips on a dime and kind of just goes crazy at the end, it's just a great thing to watch. That you've heard me say in many reviews, I don't watch too many movies over. I think I saw this one 3 or 4 times. I just couldn't get enough. And it was just when she flips on it, she's so fun the entire time, but then when she flips, it's just fabulous. I wish there was a little bit more of that, that we could have seen for a longer time. I wish there was more people for her to flip on. It was just great, and my favorite performance I saw all year long. Not to downplay anybody else's performance, but definitely my favorite performance, and really this movie is up there. Like I said, lots of good things happening in this movie, but it really jumped to the as high as it could probably go, because I loved that performance so much. And, I don't find myself getting wrapped up into performances a lot. I like performances and so forth, and I know a lot of people do a lot more, talk and so forth with their reviews and so forth with certain actors and the acting jobs that are done. If you go through my reviews, I don't harp on it a lot. I know they're a big part of the movies, but I kind of sit back and kind of take in the big picture as opposed to that. But she is the big picture in this movie, and just does a fabulous job. So if you haven't seen that one is another one that landed on Shudder, and I was only at the festival that I saw it at, and then quickly reached a deal with Shudder, and so Shudder really nailed getting this one, and got it right. So I'm happy for that, and I at that festival I've gotten to meet the director writer Brandon Christensen several times now for some of the other movies he's done, and I'm just very pleased for him and making this movie, and got we got to interview him, and also urged him to think about doing more with Rebecca. So he said he was open to it. So hopefully we get to see another performance from Gracie of this character, and hopefully she can maintain all that goodness that was there. So number two is going to be an interesting film here, because and I really sat back and thought about this movie. There was no doubt. There's 2 movies I gave 5 stars to, or 5 stars, 5 pools of blood to, which that is my highest ranking. This one obviously my number 1 movie, and that's obviously immediately puts it towards the top. But I realized, I kind of had a little bit of debate whether to put this one here, because I know a lot of people have not seen this one. And again, only if you've kind of been privileged to see some of the festival films through whatever different festival outlets, would you have been able to see this movie. So I don't know when it's going to get a larger release. I would assume sometime next year it will. And, I kind of debated about pretending I didn't see this one and kind of putting it aside. But I thought that would be a little unfair, and, immediately would have to be my number 1 movie, and then some other movie would have to come and try to beat it. And I could have done that, but I was like, no, I saw it this year. Let's put it up here. And it did truly come out this year. And it was truly a 2021 movie. Again, not everybody, was it was available for everybody to see. Again, only being at festivals. So, depending if you're a festival goer or press or whatever, you might not have been able to see this movie. And the movie I'm talking about is The Sadness. And again, I don't know I don't remember the director's name, but it's from what I understand, is the first time. He's either, I don't know if he wrote it, I think he wrote and directed it, but it was the first time, and he's, the movie won several awards at festivals, was much talked about at all these festivals. A movie that's not going to be for everybody. If you're not a fan of kind of the blood and guts kind of thing, and things being, just brutal and kind of crazy and wild, you're not gonna, this is not gonna be the movie for you. But this movie screams a movie in my wheelhouse. Um, Everything, I like the blood and the guts and the spilling and stabbings and, organs being broken, intestines being ripped out, and just all that goodness is in this movie. There's bloody sex in this movie. It's never good to see, but there's rape in this movie. So that's always a tough thing to watch. Um, there's just all kinds of foul language, even though it's not in English. Was it dubbed? I don't remember if it was dubbed or if it was just subtitles. That I don't remember. I don't think it was in English, but I could be wrong. But it's not. Yeah, and I should have looked up where the film comes from, but it's not an American film. I believe it's Asian. I don't remember where. But so much of everything I like. If you're kind of in my ballpark and you like blood and guts and all that kind of craziness, this is the movie, and I can't wait for more people to see this movie. It, because it's so much of my type of movie, it was really, really hard not to make it number one. And I'll get to number one here in a second. Being number one, being a much different kind of movie. But this one, is I'm not going to say, some people call it zombies. I'm going to say they're more of the infected. I may have gone back and forth in my review whether it was zombies or whatever, but basically, just to kind of give you a quick hint of what it's about. Basically, you have a couple and they're starting their day. They end up splitting up, going in different directions, and before you know it, an infection is happening. And very set to our times now, with this virus going on and so forth, and things get crazy. Each of them get put in a different position, running from these things, and lots of crazy stuff happens, and people are killed, but they're not, they're not even, it's not the 28 days later, just zombies that just kind of run, or the infected, we have that debate, everybody has that debate about that movie. Zombies, infected, whatever you want to call them, that just kind of run after you with great rage and whatever. These kind of have an added element to it. Yeah, they have a rage to it, but they're still able to kind of think and kind of plan things out, and they just want to have an evil intention to you. There's a couple of scenes. There's one where there's a group of them that are just basically torturing this person, and you can see it's not that they're just eating them because they're zombies and they want to eat them. No, they're just torturing this person to the best they can, and you'll see that throughout the movie. Like I said, there's a lot of foul language. There's some of them that one of them that kind of follows and chases after the main girl here, and he's definitely full of foul language, and he has really there's no filter on him and so forth, and he just has bad things in mind for her. But just so many wild and crazy things happen in this movie, and just if you're into that kind of horror, I just don't see how you can't like this movie. So yeah, this one is up there. You're going to see it on some people's list, maybe not others, and if it's not, I'm going to say it's most likely because either they don't like this style of movie or they just haven't seen this movie. Otherwise, it just screams horror to me. And with that, I'll just jump into my number one here. No drum roll needed. Psycho Gorman. Saw it early in the year and just enjoyed everything about it. It gives you a little bit of everything. Kind of 80s kind of style movie. If you're a fan of the 80s like I am, you can love that. You can love Psycho Gorman himself, and he's this big bad alien dude, and they show how powerful he is and how he can just destroy any human if he wanted to, and even some of the other aliens that he's fighting. But then is reduced to basically a slave of this young girl, and I believe it was Mimi, and which also one of the great performers of the year. Let me see if I ever Nita Josie Hannah, if I said that right. I was just blown away by what she did in this movie. Another one of my favorite performances of the year. Young girl, and I think she seems to be super talented, and hopefully we see her in some other movies in the future. But just her back and forth with this alien creature, so big in stature, and being able to crush anybody he wanted, but he's basically a slave to her because of this ring that she found, and the back and forth between her and her brother is fun. The back and forth between all three of them and Psycho Gorman, and even there's another boy involved for a while, and what eventually happens to him. The special effects are practical. They really push the limits. What is it? A warrior's death with what Psycho Gorman does to people is just crazy, but really pushes the limits there with special effects. There's a great fight scene where he's fighting several of the other aliens. There's a crazy, bring you back to the 80s kind of style fight he has towards the end of the movie. If you're a fan of like the Star Wars, Star Trek kind of thing, you maybe like that kind of angle in the movie. Just so much to like. And of course, the hunky boy line. How can you not like this hunky boy? That was just hilarious in its own. If you're going to rank lines in the movie, the whole thing about hunky boys is definitely one of my favorite of the years. But yeah, just so much good there. So much to enjoy, so much that I liked. Just can every time I think about that movie, it's just so much fun. And another one that I saw several times, and I wish I would have been able to see The Sadness more times. I would have definitely watched that again. I don't remember if I watched it a second time, but I would definitely watch that several more times. But yeah, that's my top 10. That's my list. Like it or not. Again, I go out there and I preach on promotehorror.com every day. Love horror, love the horror community. So please, as everybody puts out these lists, remember that they are that reviewer or that critic or whoever that person's list. That's not a reflection of you. That doesn't mean you have to agree. As I say, sometimes we can agree to disagree. You don't have to tear into somebody. We're trying to build a community here, so if you want to argue a certain movie or two, or you don't like their list, that's fine. Talk about it, go over it, whatever. But have your limits and be respectful and let's build a community and not break it down here. So again, with my list, you can hate it, like it, whatever. If you want to discuss it, we can. Whether you disagree or like it, whatever. But let's just all get along with all these lists and whatever, and move on. Life's hard enough as it is. Let's all gather around horror and enjoy it for what it is. With that said, I promised to mention some movies that were close but didn't quite make the list. One of them, what I kind of really debated on, was Black Friday, the one with Bruce Campbell, a recent one, holiday movie. A lot of fun, a lot of special effects in that one as well. It was close. It was close. I thought maybe they pushed it a little far at the end, but there was a lot to like there. What else? Benny Loves You. Really enjoyed that movie, but I kind of looked and I saw that it was listed as 2019, so I kind of felt that even though I saw it for the first time this year, maybe some other people had seen it much earlier, so maybe it wasn't fair to really put that in here. Regardless, I really enjoyed that one. Lots of fun. A puppet, another kind of puppet-like movie, and then kind of go crazy. So, how could you not love Benny? Slacks, I know that one kind of went back and forth with a lot of people, but I enjoyed that one. Killer Jeans, why not? A lot of fun there. Maybe a movie or two that maybe you didn't see. One was Murder Barry When. A good play on the title there. I think, don't think, this one didn't get a huge release. I'm not sure how many people saw this one, but I think, it's probably one of those indie horror ones that is kind of under the radar there. You might not be familiar with the actors, even the writer, director, or whatever, but I think at the end of the day, when you put everything together in that movie, it becomes a very fun movie, and I really kind of liked, kind of what, I don't want to spoil it, but what basically happens at the end, and where it kind of goes. Really don't want to spoil that. Another one that I really liked is Skull the Mask. I know I gave it 3.5 with blood, and I love the Skull. Another movie in my wheelhouse, lots of blood and guts and just craziness, and the Skull was another crazy creature. I could totally see him being friends with Psycho Gorman, but just killing people left and right in bizarre ways, and just lots of practical effects as well. The beginning was a little confusing, and maybe that's why I didn't rate it as high. But I certainly really enjoyed that one, and that one I believe is still on Shudder, so you can definitely check that out. Vicious Fun, another one that I think it ended up on Shudder. Again, really funny movie, but also plenty of blood and guts in there as well. So you kind of see that kind of theme going on there. Two movies that I kind of left out only because they were lighter on the horror element, and since I do like the blood and guts and that, I kind of went more heavy on those kind of movies, and more to being a true horror film, and one was Faking a Murderer. Really kind of documentary style movie that was really hilarious. I almost think of it as a comedy more than anything else. But it is, it does have a touch of horror, and it is about a murderer, done in a found footage, very creative way. So if you're not maybe on the boundary of horror there, maybe if you're into the true crime scene kind of thing, and that kind of fits the ballpark more, and that's kind of maybe why I kind of left it out. Another one is Sweetie, You Won't Believe It. Another one I saw at festivals. I don't think it got a big release yet. Another foreign film, but it was just hilarious, and there are some really bloody moments in it, but I think it's a comedy first, and that's kind of why I kind of didn't want to kind of pull it in there. But you may see it in some people's list, and I think I might have seen it on somebody's list already. But really funny movie. Kind of reminded me of The Hangover, kind of that kind of thing where three friends kind of go out on a fishing trip, and they're very awkward and whatever, and kind of end up in a situation that's just above what they can handle, and it does end up with some blood and guts and so forth, and that point I really enjoyed, but I thought it was just a little bit more comedy than a horror, and that's kind of why I kind of left that a little bit out, but really worth seeing as well. And the other one that I ranked high, but I realized that maybe it came out earlier in Spontaneous, ranked higher than a lot of the other movies, but that was a movie that sometimes you go along, you watch a movie that really hits you and kind of speaks to you, and I thought, again, it wasn't horror off the bat. It was probably a little bit more comedy and a little bit more of a regular movie, but did have a horror element to it. Definitely a horror movie element to it, because people were basically exploding, which was fun for me and fun for the movie. But it was also kind of tied in with a lot of other, I guess, genres to say, so it was hard to kind of narrow it down. But I just thought that was just one of these movies that spoke to me for personal reasons and whatever, and so forth, and I didn't really want to kind of give it a spot that deserved of something that was more horror related and more general horror there. So but definitely a movie that kind of I gave it a high rating just because, like I said, it just hit me personally for different reasons. Anything else I kind of left out there? Seance on Shudder was good. Two other festival films I saw, Brain Freeze and Glass House. One of them is a zombie film, the other one's just an interesting twist of a film there. Hopefully, I think one of those, Brain Freeze, might have been out on DVD yet, but I'm not sure. But maybe those get a bigger release at some point for you guys to see. So those are some of the other ones that kind of just borderlined it. But there were so many good horror movies out there. Lots by festival. So hopefully you guys get to see some more of them soon. Especially some of them like The Sadness. Um, and as far as the big movies go, you can go back to those reviews, but Halloween Kills, when you have one of the main characters, Laurie, basically be in the hospital the entire time and basically do almost nothing. That was kind of a downer after everything you built up in the first one. And then Candyman was just too much social commentary for me. I just thought Candyman lacked. I wanted, to see more of a Tony Todd performance in the movie, and just never kind of got it. I know a lot of people love the movie, and it was a well done movie and blah blah blah, but like I've said on some of the other reviews, I see where horror is going. It is influenced by social commentary, and that's a great thing, and so forth. But I just don't like when I think the film is more social commentary than the film itself, and I don't like some of my classic horrors, going back and bringing them back to have that point. I don't want to go through the whole thing again with Candyman, but, if you want to, you can go to my review and hear what I said about that. And Spiral was okay. I didn't think it was, it has its moments, but I didn't think it was, overly needed or anything greater than anything we've already seen. And I believe there was some social commentary in that movie as well. Which kind of brings, to horror and where it is. There's a lot of social commentary in a lot of the movies we see now. And that's fine. It's great that horror can do that. Horror can be a voice for people, and that's part of film and so forth. I understand all that. I've said this before. I just don't like when it kind of overwhelms, and when I feel like I'm watching more social commentary than anything else, and kind of more than the film itself. A movie that I thought did pretty well was Slumber Party Massacre. While that was on Sci-Fi, that definitely they kind of flip the roles there, and that in itself is social commentary and what they do there, and making the statement that they can flip the roles. But I didn't think they overly put it down my throat and kind of distracted from what the movie was doing. But yeah, that's a lot of the horror we're seeing in different ways. I mean, even a movie like I mentioned, Slacks, while the fun and whatever, blah, 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 about the killer genes, there was a whole thing behind it with, the making of the genes, and that was part of what was going on there. So lots of social commentary all over the place in horror these days. And again, that's fine. I just don't care for when it's pushed down my throat too much. But I understand that that's part of filmmaking, and that's part of why we have films, and horror movies have been doing that for forever. It's not just a now thing. I understand all that. I don't know. I guess we're so much involved in it with the news and everything. If you watch the news, it just, when you turn on your horror movies and you see it as well, it just gets a bit tiresome. I guess maybe I should watch more news, and then maybe it won't be so tiresome in my horror. Anyway, what else to kind of say here? Some of the shows and series and whatever. The Witcher just started. I hope to catch that. Both season 1 and season 2. Dexter's been going on, and I'll do a review of that once that's over, but I'm excited that is back. I love Dexter. Chucky, I'll be posting a review for that soon. I already did it. Haven't posted it yet. Glad that's back, and I was glad in a way, while I kind of get tiresome of some of these older films and the remakes and so forth, and now the lawsuit with Friday the 13th is over, and now, supposedly it opens the doors to maybe some more movies. As much as I love them, having it just come back over and over again, I don't know. I don't know where we're going. Hellraiser's coming. And they're kind of flipping us with that, with a new dynamic there. I don't know. I'm cool with a lot of these festival films and a lot of these new, fresher things coming on with fresher faces and so forth, and kind of new ideas, and taking familiar things and a new way of doing them is what I'm feeling I'm enjoying more than sticking, a popular face and killer out there that we all love. But, has it been done too many times? And it's probably done more times wrong than it has done well. So, we're going to get another Texas Chainsaw Massacre as well, so we'll see. But going back to some of the series and stuff, You was good, season 3. If you haven't seen that, I'm pleased that even though I complain sometimes that the Netflix and Amazon are there, and we do find good stuff on there from time to time, whether it's a series or a movie or whatever. I hope that more and more horror fans are enjoying the blast of horror that you can get. It's not always good, but we're getting it. It's coming from all angles and a lot of places to see movie. Even people going back and watching a lot of films that have already come out on something like Tubi, and you can revisit some classics or maybe some movies that weren't all that great, but maybe you'll enjoy them now. So just the opening of doors and places to see these films is great, and like I said, we're always about growing the horror community and seeing it build and get bigger and bigger. And I guess the more places that horror can be seen, I guess that's better, and hopefully we can get more horror fans in that way. But yeah, it's been another good year. Last year was good. This year's good. So while the years itself might suck, at least the horror continues to come in good waves, and just good shows. And I'm missing some out on the top of my head now, and plenty of things I've liked. And just so much avenues out there now, and I know Netflix kind of throwing down your throat with the true crime, but if you're a fan of true crime, and in a way that is horror itself, so many good true crimes out there in series, and learning about serial killers and taking deep dives into them, and even Discovery Channel, and now they have Discovery Plus, and doing all these shock docs, and if you're into the ghost thing, just horror just all over the place, for you guys to enjoy and whatever. So with that, head over to promotehorror.com, and you get your fill of press releases and all these films that maybe you don't know about. We do press releases for some of these smaller films as well, and festivals and whatever, to kind of learn about and see that there's a lot of horror out there. And even if you're reading horror or listening to podcasts and whatever, it's just great. It's just great to see, and everything's out there. So with that, if you've watched this all, A+ to you. I wish I had a prize for you. I know I've rambled on for a long time, and hopefully, if you haven't seen any of these movies, I've given you a reason to, and hopefully you enjoy them as much as I did. And if you have your list out there, or a movie, whatever, that you liked or whatever, please feel free to send it to me. I want to see it. I'm interested to see what other people liked. I know you didn't find movies like Censor and Last Night in Soho, which I see on a lot of people's lists. Movies like that, I enjoyed them too. I reviewed both of those movies, and there's some other ones like Gaia, and what are some other ones that I keep seeing? There's a lot out there that I saw. You can go back through my reviews on the blog and see maybe why I didn't like them to maybe the extent of some other people, but well done movies. But maybe I just didn't like them to the level that some of the other people did. But again, I respect everybody's opinion and why they liked these movies and why they put them there. So again, if you have a list, I want to see it. Feel free to send it. Put it in the comment section. Throw some of the movies that you liked. Twitter and Facebook is down below as well. So reach out to me there. What you thought of my list, or you want to put your list of your own. You want to talk about horror. We can do that there. And again, horrorscorereviews.blogspot.com, where you can find all my reviews, video ones, written ones. If you're curious about a movie that didn't make the list, if I saw it again, I didn't see everything. It seems like I saw a lot, but there are some other titles that I did miss. I think what it's called, Titan or something like that, which I've seen on a lot of people's list. I know I've seen it at festivals. I missed that one. I didn't get the opportunity to see that one. But I've seen it on a lot of lists now that I'm very eager to see it. well, obviously won't probably get to see it till sometime next year. So, take that in mind too. I may not have seen one of the movies that you really liked, and that might be a reason why it's not on this list as well. So, yeah, with that, you can see everything that I have seen, or almost everything I've seen that I've thought worthy of reviewing at least, will be at the blog if you want to go through that. So, again, I thank you. Thank you for joining me in 2021. And whatever reviews you've seen, whether they're in video or on the blog or whatever you read, and however much time you spent here and listening to me ramble on, I thank you and I appreciate it. And let's hope horror continues in 2022, and hope that we can get over this virus thing in 2022 as well, and get back to normal here. So with that, as usual, I will catch you on the next review, horror fans.